More than 100 homes were foreclosed in a single Florida city last month. Punta Gorda dropped 11.93% in home values, the steepest fall of any major metro in the United States in 12 months. Meanwhile, the average Florida homeowner pays $5,838 a year just to insure a $300,000 home, nearly 2.5 times the national average. Drive down McGregor Boulevard in Fort Myers on a clear morning, and the place still looks exactly like the brochure promised. Royal palms lining the road, blue sky, waterfront homes with boats in the driveway, warm air off the river. This was the dream that sold millions of Americans on Florida's Gulf Coast. But here is what they are not telling you. Today we count down 10 Florida Gulf Coast cities, where the insurance crisis is doing what no hurricane ever could, permanently destroying home values city by city, block by block. And number 1 just led the entire country in home price drops. Subscribe now so you never miss the next housing warning. Drive across the Green Bridge into Bradenton on a clear morning, and the Manatee River opens up wide on both sides. Palm trees line the waterfront. Older Florida bungalows sit behind low fences, driveways, quiet in the early heat. This is the kind of city that drew people away from everything cold and expensive. For a while it worked, but here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Active listings across the Sarasota-Bradenton corridor have nearly doubled year over year, according to Florida Realtors' 2026 data. Not edged up, not gradually climbed, nearly doubled. The inventory is stacking. The buyers who were supposed to absorb it are somewhere else. The demand engine that powered this market is running on fumes. Florida attracted 183,646 net new domestic residents in 2023. In 2025, according to data reported by Newsweek, that number was 22,517, an 88% collapse in 2 years. When migration dries up, listings accumulate and prices follow gravity. A growing number of Bradenton sellers report the same sequence listed in January, price cut in March, cut again in May, and still waiting. Not because anything is wrong with the house, because the wave of buyers from Ohio and Michigan that made this market feel permanent has stopped arriving. If you bought the median Bradenton home in 2022, here is what happened to your money. Home values across the Northport Sarasota-Bradenton metro are down 7.54% year over year, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $400,000 purchase, that is $30,000 in paper losses. The listings are still climbing. If the buyers stopped coming and the inventory doubled, what exactly is supposed to reverse this? Come into Sarasota from the north, and you pass through the kind of Florida that money looks like when it gets comfortable. Mediterranean architecture, boutique restaurants, art galleries, the Gulf visible at the end of wide, palm-lined streets. For years, this market was considered bulletproof, the kind of place where prices only went one direction. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Home values across the Northport Sarasota-Bradenton metro dropped 7.54% year over year, according to ResiClub Analytics. Active listings in this corridor have nearly doubled year over year, according to Florida Realtors' 2026 data. This is not a dip. This is a market recalibrating at scale, and the recalibration is accelerating. The high-end Gulf Coast market has a structural problem. It was built on the assumption that buyers from cold, expensive northern cities would keep arriving with cash or pre-approved jumbo mortgages. That assumption held through 2023. By 2025, Florida's net domestic migration had collapsed 88% from its peak, according to Newsweek. The customers stopped showing up. The listings did not. A growing number of luxury sellers here are discovering something uncomfortable. The prices that felt justified 2 years ago are no longer moving homes. Multiple reductions on high-end listings. Concessions that did not exist in 2021 are now standard. The negotiating power has shifted, and some sellers are the last to accept it. If you bought at the Sarasota 2022 peak, here is what happened to your money. This metro is down 17.4% from that peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $500,000 purchase, that is $87,000 erased from your balance sheet. On paper for now. If the luxury market is softening in Sarasota, which Florida market exactly do you believe is immune? Bonita Springs sits between Naples and Fort Myers, like a town that never quite decided which one it wanted to be. Gated communities line both sides of Imperial Parkway. Community pools glitter behind white walls, manicured medians, the kind of place that sold itself on the idea that Naples' prestige came with a slightly friendlier price tag. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Gulf front properties in this coastal corridor now carry insurance bills averaging $7,000 a year, according to Wilcox Family Insurance's 2026 coastal projections. That is before flood coverage, before wind mitigation add-ons, before the mortgage payment. For a buyer financing here in 2026, that premium adds over $500 to the monthly cost of ownership before a single piece of furniture arrives. Florida homeowners pay an average of $5,838 per year to insure a $300,000 home, according to bank rates May 2026 data. The national average is $2,377. That gap is not a weather tax. That gap is a structural shift in who can actually afford to own here. A growing number of Bonita Springs buyers are running the numbers and walking away. The combined monthly cost of mortgage taxes, HOA fees, and insurance now exceeds what comparable square footage costs to rent in several Florida metros. For buyers planning a 5-year hold, the math no longer justifies the risk. If you bought the median home in the Naples-Bonita Springs corridor in 2022, here is what happened to your money. Home values in this metro fell 5.97% year over year, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $500,000 home, that is $30,000 lost before you count every insurance bill paid along the way. When insurance alone adds more than $500 a month to your housing costs, who exactly is the buyer that makes this market work? Drive down Fifth Avenue South in Naples on a weekday morning, and it still looks like money. High-end boutiques, white tablecloth restaurants, retirees in golf carts cutting through shade trees, waterfront properties with private docks and manicured hedges. Naples spent decades building a reputation as the one Gulf Coast market that defied gravity, old money stable, demand, no corrections. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Home values in the Naples, Marco Island metro fell 5.97% year over year between January 2025 and January 2026, according to ResiClub Analytics. Even Naples is falling. The market that was supposed to be bulletproof has a crack in it, and no one is talking about sealing it. The mechanism is the same across this entire coastline. Insurance costs have permanently altered the monthly math of owning here. Florida homeowners now pay an average of $5,838 per year for a $300,000 dwelling policy, according to bank rates May 2026 data. In Naples, where median prices run well above that threshold, the annual insurance bill climbs higher still. Buyers are doing the arithmetic and declining to sign. A growing number of Naples sellers who listed in early 2026 are receiving offers $20,000 to $30,000, below asking from buyers who cite carrying costs, not price, as their primary concern. The demand is not dead. It is demanding discounts that sellers were not prepared to give. If you bought the median Naples home at the 2022 peak, here is what happened to your money. Values in this metro have dropped nearly 6% over the past 12 months alone, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $700,000 purchase, that is $42,000 in paper losses, and the broader Gulf Coast correction is not finished. If even Naples is correcting, what does that tell you about every city remaining on this list? If this is hitting close to home, hit subscribe. We cover these markets every week so you can stay ahead of what is coming. Cross the Caloosahatchee River on the Edison Bridge heading into Fort Myers, and the view still earns its reputation. The river runs wide and calm below. Tall palms line McGregor Boulevard heading south. The historic district carries this weight of a city built when Florida still felt like discovery. Thomas Edison wintered here, and the old money left its mark on the architecture. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. The Cape Coral Fort Myers metro median home price fell 9% year over year to $341,250, according to ATTOM's first quarter 2026 data, 9%. In a single year, 106 homes were foreclosed in Cape Coral alone last month. The growth story has become a recovery story, and the recovery has not yet begun. The fault line was always there. Hurricane Ian exposed it. The insurance costs that followed did not stabilize, they compounded. Rebuilding along Fort Myers Beach and the coastal sections of this metro has become financially impossible for many middle-class homeowners, according to NPR's November 2025 reporting. High construction costs, rising premiums, a buyer pool contracting as migration into Florida slows. A growing number of Fort Myers homeowners who received insurance payouts after Ian are now confronting a different problem. The new policy on the rebuilt home costs more than the old policy on the one that flooded. The insurance industry repriced after the storm. Homeowners did not get the same deal twice. If you bought the median home in this metro in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The Cape Coral Fort Myers metro has declined 18.8% from its 2022 peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $400,000 purchase, that is $75,200 in lost value on paper today. The insurance paid out after Ian. The buyers still slowed down anyway. What does it actually take to stabilize a market like this one? Drive south on I-75 and exit onto Price Boulevard, heading into Northport, and you feel the promise of the place immediately. Wide streets, new construction everywhere, rooftop solar panels on fresh stucco. This was the city that offered everything Florida promised sun affordability space, without the price tag that came with Sarasota next door. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Northport home values are down somewhere between 4.7% and 9.3% year over year. Redfin and Zillow both track this market and both agree the direction is down. According to Zillow's March 2026 figures, the average home value in Northport has fallen to $318,081. That is a 9.3% decline in 12 months. Northport was a direct beneficiary of the pandemic migration boom. People looking for affordable Florida poured in between 2020 and 2022, driving values up sharply. When that wave reversed and Florida's net domestic migration collapsed 88% by 2025, according to Newsweek, Northport lost the one thing its market depended on: new arrivals. Without them, the inventory kept accumulating and had no one to absorb it. A growing number of Northport sellers who bought in 2021 and 2022 report being underwater or close to it. They did not buy at the absolute peak by much, but between declining values and insurance premiums that show no sign of retreating, the math of staying is getting harder every single month. If you bought the median Northport home at the 2022 peak, here is what happened to your money. This market is down 17.4% from that peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $380,000 home purchased at the top, that is $66,200 in value erased from your net worth. On paper today. You bought here because it was the affordable version of Sarasota. Is it still? Port Charlotte does not advertise itself. It sits along the Peace River and Charlotte Harbor with the quiet confidence of a city that has always served working Floridians. No tourist district, no boutique hotels, grid streets, modest homes, fishing boats in the driveways. This was affordable Florida before affordable Florida became a trend. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Port Charlotte sits in Charlotte County, the same county as Punta Gorda, which recorded the steepest home price decline of any major metro in the United States in the past 12 months, according to ResiClub Analytics. Port Charlotte is sandwiched between two of the worst performing markets on this entire list, Cape Coral to the south, Punta Gorda to the north, and it carries the same insurance exposure as both of them, with none of the name recognition that might attract outside buyers. The insurance market does not price by affordability. Charlotte County properties carry the same storm exposure, the same flood zone classifications, and the same annual premium trajectory as every other waterfront market on this coastline. Florida homeowners pay an average of $5,838 per year for basic coverage on a $300,000 home, according to Bankrate's May 2026 data. For properties near Charlotte Harbor, that figure climbs higher. The monthly carrying cost catches up to every buyer eventually. A growing number of Port Charlotte homeowners describe a particular frustration they chose this market, precisely because it was supposed to be the affordable alternative to Cape Coral. Same Florida sun, same access to water. But as it turns out, the same insurance bill, and now the same downward price pressure from every direction. If you bought in Port Charlotte at the region's 2022 peak, here is what the surrounding data suggests happened to your money. The broader Southwest Florida market is down between 17 and 25% from that peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a $300,000 purchase in this county, estimated paper losses fall somewhere between $51,000 and $75,000 before insurance and maintenance costs over those years are counted. You picked Port Charlotte because it was the affordable option. Affordable compared to what and for how much longer? Fort Myers Beach sits on Estero Island, a sliver of Gulf front land, connected to the mainland by a single bridge. Drive over the Matanzas Pass Bridge on a clear afternoon, and the Gulf opens blue and wide to the horizon. Pelicans glide past beach houses with screen porches facing the water. Before Hurricane Ian, this was a place people waited years to afford. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Fort Myers Beach received over $1 billion in flood insurance payouts after Hurricane Ian. $1 billion. And yet, according to NPR's November 2025 reporting, high construction and insurance costs have made the island unaffordable for many of the people who called it home before the storm. The money arrived. The middle class left anyway. After Ian, the insurance industry did not restore the old pricing. It rebuilt its entire risk model for barrier island properties along Florida's Gulf Coast. New policies on rebuilt homes bear no resemblance to pre-storm rates. Construction costs surged 30 to 40% in the post-hurricane labor market. The monthly cost of owning on Estero Island crossed a threshold that working and middle-class families cannot sustain, regardless of how much the government paid out. A growing number of Fort Myers Beach homeowners who rebuilt after Ian are now selling not because they want to, but because the insurance renewal arrived and the number on the paper made staying financially impossible. NPR documented these cases in its 2025 reporting. Families who survived the storm itself, who did the work, who rebuilt, and then could not afford the bill that came with staying. If you owned a home on Fort Myers Beach before Ian, here is what the recovery actually cost. Reconstruction per square foot ran 30 to 40% above pre-storm estimates. The new insurance policy on the rebuilt property runs higher than the one on the home that flooded. And the market value now competes with every other distressed Gulf Coast listing, stacking up from Bradenton to Punta Gorda. The $1 billion did not solve the math. $1 billion in insurance payouts flowed into this island. The people still left anyway. What does that tell you about what money alone can fix? Cape Coral was built on a dream, the largest canal system in the world, 400 miles of waterways, threading through a city, designed from scratch in the 1950s, to give ordinary Americans access to waterfront life. Drive down any quiet residential street on a weekday, and the canals are still there, still blue, still catching the afternoon light, exactly the way the brochures promised. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Cape Coral's foreclosure rate is now ranked 5th highest of any major metro in the United States, according to ATTOM's April 2026 data. 106 homes were foreclosed here last month alone. Not during a recession, not after a market crash, in 2026. While the national economy kept moving, 106 families in Cape Coral lost their homes in a single month. The mechanism here is insurance multiplied by leverage. A canal access home in Cape Coral carries dramatically higher insurance exposure than an inland property, and the annual premiums reflect that. For Gulf access canal properties, insurance runs 20 to 50% above the already elevated Florida average, according to Wilcox Family Insurance's 2026 projections. Investors who bought in 2021 and 2022, expecting to rent or flip, are now bleeding cash instead of earning it, and foreclosure has become the exit. A growing number of Cape Coral landlords who purchased canal access properties in the pandemic boom are now listing at a loss. The rental income that looked sufficient in 2021 does not simultaneously cover the 2026 insurance bill, the property taxes, the maintenance on a waterfront property, and the mortgage. Some are making that calculation every single month and choosing foreclosure over continued losses. If you bought the median Cape Coral home at the 2022 peak, here is what happened to your money. This market is down 18.8% from that peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a home purchased at $420,000, that is $79,016 in lost value, while the insurance bill kept arriving every single year regardless. Fifth highest foreclosure rate in the country. If your neighbor's house goes to the bank, what happens to the value of yours? Punta Gorda sits at the northern tip of Charlotte Harbor, where the Peace River finally meets the Gulf. It is a small, quiet city, historic downtown, with low buildings and ceiling fans turning slowly in the afternoon heat. Retirees on bicycles, manatees visible from the city docks, waterfront restaurants with hand-painted signs. The kind of Florida that people who did their research found a hidden gem, they called it. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Punta Gorda posted the single largest home price decline of any major metro in the United States between January 2025 and January 2026. 11.93% in 12 months. According to ResiClub Analytics, no major American metro lost more home value in that period than Punta Gorda. Number 1. The hidden gem is now the hidden warning. Punta Gorda is the convergence point of every force hitting this coastline simultaneously. Insurance exposure on Charlotte Harbor waterfront properties. Domestic migration that collapsed 88% from its peak, according to Newsweek. Investors who over-leveraged in 2021 and 2022 and are now selling at any price to exit. And a buyer pool that is running the full monthly cost calculation and walking away. There is no single cause. There is a pile-on, and Punta Gorda is at the bottom of it. A growing number of Punta Gorda owners who purchased at the 2022 peak are sitting on losses they did not model when they signed. They were told this market was insulated, small city, retirement age, stability, waterfront, scarcity, hidden value. What they were not told is that insurance repricing after regional hurricane exposure affects annual carrying costs, whether or not their specific home ever flooded. The bill comes regardless of the damage. If you bought the median Punta Gorda home at the 2022 peak, here is what happened to your money. This market is down 25.3% from that peak, according to ResiClub Analytics. On a home purchased at $400,000 at the top, today's value is approximately $298,800. That is $101,200 removed from your net worth. On paper, today, with the insurance bill still due next month. Number 1 in the country for home price drops. If you signed that mortgage in 2022, would you sign it again today, knowing what the market knows right now? 10 cities, different names, different zip codes, different stories on the surface, but underneath every single one of them, the same current runs. Insurance costs that have no relationship to what wages can absorb. A domestic migration that powered this entire coastline for 2 straight years and then collapsed 88%. Pandemic buyers sitting on 25% paper losses in a market they were told was a sure thing. And an insurance industry that repriced every property on this Gulf Coast after each storm, not just the ones that flooded, not just the ones near the water, all of them. Here is the part that nobody is saying out loud. Fort Myers Beach received over $1 billion in flood insurance payouts after Ian. The middle class still could not afford to stay. That is not a Fort Myers Beach problem. That is not a Cape Coral problem. That is what happens when the real cost of risk finally gets priced into the market honestly, and the market cannot handle the truth. The warning signs were always there. The question is, were you watching? This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or real estate advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making any investment decisions. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your city in the comments below.